The early American settlers came into the New World because they sought freedom and a better life. After a while, they realized that a king thousands of miles away had more say in their governance than they did. They came to resent the king because their rights were not respected. Because of this, they felt no obligation or patriotism towards that government. So much so, they decided to declare independence and form a new nation. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Emma Charrington. Thomas Jefferson once wrote, "All men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." This means that our freedom does not come from the government, but the government should protect it. The Constitution was put in place to ensure the protection of the rights that our forefathers so longed for. The Constitution was established as the law of the land and protected our liberty by limiting the powers of the government so it could not take away our freedom. The rights described in the preamble to the Declaration of Independence are fixed within the writings of this patriotic document. For instance, the structure of the government is firmly set by the Constitution. It separates the powers to preserve our inalienable rights. Amendments were added to further secure our freedom. The First and 14th Amendments say, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." These two amendments clearly protect our rights, such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and due process of law. It prohibits the making of any law that undermines these God-given rights. By doing this, it protects my freedom as an American citizen, freedoms that have been preserved by the blood of patriotic Americans for over 250 years. Where would this nation be if we did not have the guarantees and protection of our Constitution? Would we be free, or would we face oppression and tyranny? Would this be the land of opportunity? Many of us do not realize how lucky and privileged we are to be a part of this great nation. We often take for granted how valuable U.S. citizenship really is. From the outside, the U.S. is seen as an escape, a haven that breaks the bonds and sets free all of its people. Why? Our Constitution. The Constitution is a powerful document that created a powerful nation. Because of the patriotism and liberty the document represents, it went on to inspire many other countries to develop a free election system of their own. It sets an example of what a good and stable government should look like. It is a written piece of history that represents the morals of all of America, and it has a safe country for all of its people. It ensures that all citizens, regardless of race, age, gender, background, or class, will receive liberty and justice. This is what our country stands for. This is patriotism. This is freedom. And I'm proud to live in the land of the free. Thank you for your time.
Do you ever think about how the U.S. Constitution has changed since it was first written in 1787? Welcome judges, parents, guests, and fellow contestants. My name is Aurora Jones and I'm an 8th grader at PRE campus. Over time, there's been some debate as to whether the Constitution is a living document or not. Some people say that the Constitution is living, while others disagree. Although there can be points made on both sides, I believe that the U.S. Constitution is a living document that adapts with time. There are several examples that support the claim that the Constitution grows with time. Above all, the process of electing government officials has been altered over time. In addition, there have been several amendments that have affected and changed voting rights in the United States. Equally important, there have been several amendments added to the Constitution that have affected and changed things earlier stated in the Constitution. To have patriotism means to have devoted love to your country. The Constitution is a living document that has been changed to exemplify patriotism. First and foremost, the election process for government officials in the U.S. Constitution has been changed since it was first written. Ratified in 1804, the 12th Amendment changes the election process for president and vice president. The Constitution stated that the runner-up in the presidential election would become vice president, a system that nearly sparked a constitutional crisis in 1804, when Thomas Jefferson and his running mate Aaron Burr received the same number of electoral votes. Before the 12th Amendment was ratified, the vice president of the United States was determined by the runner-up in the presidential election. This rule caused some debate and questions as to what would happen if there was a tie in the presidential election. The 12th Amendment changed this law by having electors separately vote for the United States president and vice president. Along with the U.S. Constitution changing the election process in the executive branch, the 17th Amendment changes the election process for senators. Before the ratification of the 17th Amendment in 1913, state legislators elected senators. To allow people to express more patriotism, the 17th Amendment was ratified to give the American people the right to elect senators. Additionally, there have been several amendments added to the Constitution that have changed voting rights in the United States. Before the 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendments were added to the Constitution, voting in the United States was different and only allowed a limited amount of people to vote. According to voting rights, the 15th Amendment, ratified in 1870, gave male citizens of all races the right to vote in elections. Furthermore, women gained the right to vote with the addition of the 19th Amendment after decades of protesting and working to get women's rights. With the addition of all of these amendments involving voting rights, more Americans got the chance to show patriotism by sharing their voice. Furthermore, there have been several other amendments added to the Constitution that have changed and expanded on previous things stated in the Constitution. In 1933, the 21st Amendment became the first and only amendment so far to repeal a previous amendment listed in the Constitution. The 18th Amendment, ratified in 1919, prohibited liquor in the United States and its territory. This prohibition was later repealed with the addition of the 21st Amendment. In addition, there have been several amendments that have expanded on the laws involving a jury, including the 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendments. For example, the 6th Amendment gives the accused the right to a speedy and public trial by a jury. These amendments weren't added to expand on the topics involving juries. The jury trials that we have today would be different. In the end, the United States Constitution is a living document that has adapted and will continue to adapt as the world changes. First, the way the government officials were first elected when the Constitution was first written has been changed with additions to the Constitution. Apart from this, the U.S. Constitution holds several rights that have affected and changed voting rights in the United States. Finally, the Constitution contains many amendments that have changed and expanded on things previously stated in the Constitution. Undoubtedly, the United States Constitution is a living document that adapts with time. There have been numerous amendments that have changed the Constitution for the better. Although there are things that could still be improved, the Constitution is in a much better place today than it was when it was first written. By adding, expanding, and changing the rights of American citizens, we now have a Constitution that adapts with the needs of the United States today. There may still be modifications required in the Constitution, but I believe that the Constitution will continue to change to expand on people's rights in the United States. After learning about how the U.S. Constitution has changed and expanded since 1787, do you agree or disagree that the Constitution is a living document that has and will continue to adapt with time? Thank you for listening.
For many years and generations to come and in advance, since the days of September 17th, 1787 to October 2nd, 1789, two very valuable documents were born, written, and created. Both the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights are two very important documents that explain our rights and keep us all safe. The Constitution is filled with the information in the 27 amendments, in which the first 10 being the Bill of Rights. Now, who were the people who wrote these amazing documents? These documents were written by 3 out of the 7 founding fathers. Out of the 7 founding fathers, these papers were written by John Jay, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton. Now, after the Constitution, James Madison wrote the Bill of Rights after the Constitution from his own ideas. Now, it makes me wonder, what is our Constitution and what does it mean? Our Constitution is the Bill of Rights. Our Constitution is the supreme law of the land in which superseded the Articles of Confederation. Hello, judges, people of the audience, and my hardworking contestants. My name is Mariano Ortiz, and I'm here representing Peoria Elementary. Today, I'm here to talk about both the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and why they're very important that exemplify the most amount of patriotism. These two documents Both of these documents are two of the most important papers that exemplify the most amount of patriotism and show us all what they are. These are papers that have been written by very important people, in which those people are being the Founding Fathers. On December 15th, 1791, the Bill of Rights was ratified, and the Constitution was ratified a year later in 1788 after the original writing. Both documents can exemplify patriotism by showing what they are and what they mean. This is what both the Constitution and the Bill of Rights mean to me. The first three words of the Constitution, "we the people," includes all citizens of the United States of America. The phrase tells that it wasn't just the framers, the legislators, or even the Constitution who were giving power to our government. Instead of our government gaining power from themselves, they gain it from us, we the people of the United States of America. The preamble of the Constitution says, "In order to form a more imperfect union, we establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." This saying explains the first three words of the Constitution and why it's so important to me. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution out of the 27. The Bill of Rights allows us to have a fair road, no government control, and self-individuality of the people. Now, imagine if there was no such thing. We right now would be living in a world full of unfairness, government control, and self-individuality of the people. This part of the Constitution is very important because it guarantees our civil rights and liabilities, like, for example, freedom of speech, press, and religion. Now, people at the time of writing thought writing the Bill of Rights really wasn't necessary, though also at the time of writing, the Anti-Federalists would argue that writing the Bill of Rights would be necessary to protect our road from its safety. These debates caused over combinations with necessary, proper, and general welfare, which would imply and allow certain implied powers. This certainly wasn't the case. Now, after hearing what I just said, do you still believe that these papers exemplify the most amount of patriotism? I sure do. This still considers my patriotism, and maybe it can consider yours too. The Constitution and moving can move it and consider yours too. The patriotism of these documents explain what our road has come to and what our road is today. Our road is filled with incredible knowledge and a lot of patriotism. If this can exemplify my own understanding, I'm sure it can exemplify yours too. These documents are the foundation set in stone to our road. Now, imagine where we would all be if none of this ever existed. I don't think I'd be in this very room giving this very speech now, would I? Or maybe I would, because I'm a man. The point is, I don't think we'd have a simple or specific say in certain things, like, for example, politics or maybe our government. The Bill of Rights and Constitution, consisting of 10 of the 27 amendments, are the entirety of our road just put together. These two documents, to me, are the documents that exemplify the most amount of patriotism. Once again, I'm Mario Ortiz from Peoria Elementary. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, judges, parents, guests, and fellow contestants. Our third United States President, Thomas Jefferson, once said, "It is every American's right and obligation to read and interpret the Constitution for himself or herself." What U.S. document do you feel most exemplifies patriotism, and why? Well, the U.S. document that I feel shows the most patriotism is the Constitution. First off, the Constitution is a document that holds a lot of value and power to our country. It was written back in 1787 by our founding fathers to help guide a country that is balanced and strong. So my thoughts and reasons on why I believe the Constitution shows patriotism is because it gives citizens equality, liberty, and justice, and agrees to protect these rights. Equality from the Constitution is given to citizens in many ways. For example, it has a set of several equal rights given to every individual citizen, such as the right to speech, press, assembly, and more. These rights are known to be important to citizens because everyone gets their own opportunities to express themselves. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Don't interfere with anything in the Constitution. that must be maintained, for it is the only safeguard of our liberties. Another way the Constitution shows patriotism is because it gives liberty to the nation. With liberty for every citizen, everyone is allowed to have their own voice for their own opinions. Did you know that in a few countries around the world, like Russia, China, and Turkey, their citizens are restricted from protesting and having different opinions? Many of them are given a fine or even arrested for doing this. However, this law is not used in the US, which shows me that other governments can have different freedoms than ours. So we should appreciate our Constitution for allowing us to protest and vote with different opinions. Justice is also an example of patriotism in the Constitution. A way the Constitution establishes justice is in the first 10 amendments, and one of them is by allowing every person accused of crime to have a fair trial first. With this law, it helps protect the people who are falsely accused of anything that wasn't their fault. An estimate of 4 to 6% of people are wrongly accused of conviction after trial in the United States. Benjamin Franklin once stated, "Without justice, courage is weak." This quote reveals to me that without justice, our nation would be powerless, weak, and of course, not patriotic. Therefore, justice helps encourage patriotism and ensures that our country is fair and strong. As you can see, the U.S. Constitution exemplifies patriotism because of these significant rights, which are equality, liberty, and justice, and promises to protect these rights for citizens. With these rights, we the people can all freely express ourselves and be able to show our patriotism. Ronald Reagan once claimed, "We're blessed with the opportunity to stand for something, for liberty, freedom, and fairness. And these are the things worth fighting for, worth devoting our lives to." My name is Aline Adwer, and I want you to think about the document that exemplifies the most patriotism to you. What are the reasons, and how does it impact your country? Thank you for your time and attention.
Thomas Jefferson once said that new truths are discovered. Manners and opinions change. Knowing this, are the Constitution's laws still the same as before, or do they live and adapt with our changing times? Hello, audience, contestants, and judges. My name is Grayson Goss. Today, I'll be talking about why the Constitution lives with our forever changing times. I believe that there are 3 key reasons why the Constitution lives: technology, daily life, and education. My first key point is the technology we use every day. When the Constitution was made, around 40 years ago, people used carts, wagons, and sailboats for transportation, had candles for light, and letters for communication. But in present day, we use cars, planes, and powered boats for transportation. We have electricity for light, and phones that can not just communicate with anyone, anywhere, at any time, but also entertain us with games or movies. Tech, when the Constitution was made, was nothing like it is now, showing that humans have made many significant advancements over all this time. The laws made in 1787 do still play a big role in society, but they must adapt because of how different technology is today. The second key point I'll be talking about is the daily life of a present-day person. Due to technology, everybody can talk to people and travel to places much faster. And there are also many more people in America. In fact, 83 times more than when the Constitution was actually made. With that many people, there are many more opportunities for jobs. A couple may be software developing or engineering. In addition, cell phones were, of course, not around before. That means that people entertain themselves in many ways, like telling stories, board games, or dancing. A person's life has adapted to the changing times. That means that the Constitution must adapt in the very same way. My third key point is the education men and women have today. Everyone is at least required to go to grade school, and some people even go to school after high school to further pursue their education. But when the Constitution was made, many people could not even go to school because what they're doing did not require it, or they just didn't have much money. While today there is almost not a single person in America who cannot both read and write. With more people for tighter competition, greater, more educated people can go into office, making better decisions with the laws that we follow every day. In conclusion, the things that we do for communication, entertainment, and transportation are quite different. And it's because of the evolution of technology, daily life, and education. But everything, not just the Constitution, strives to be not perfect, but better every day. Thank you for your time.
Welcome, judges, fellow contestants, parents, and guests, and thank you all for joining us here today. I am Esperanza Maria Winley, and I strongly believe that the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Emancipation Proclamation, and the Declaration of Independence exemplify true patriotism because they empower American citizens to choose and protect their rights. The U.S. Constitution holds the record as the world's longest surviving written charter of government, dating back to 1787, written by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay. At the beginning, the first 3 words of the U.S. Constitution, "We the people," means to me that it's signaling inclusion of all U.S. citizens, regardless of race, religion, or gender, and not just the Founding Fathers. By separating the government's powers into 3 branches, legislative, executive, and judicial powers, the Constitution ensures a fair balance of authority. It also shapes the rights of American citizens and entrusts them with the responsibility to elect the representatives to enforce the law. In this way, the Constitution shows patriotism by involving all Americans, separating government powers equally without taking away power, and enabling people to have rights and the right to elect their leaders. The Bill of Rights demonstrates patriotism by guaranteeing that every American has fundamental rights and freedoms. The Bill of Rights is what rights Americans are entitled to. For example, the freedom of speech has allowed people to communicate and express their thoughts and opinions. These rights are protected and cannot be taken away. It set forth the paveway for our country's future. The Emancipation Proclamation, a significant moment in history, shows the principles of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Abraham Lincoln's abolishment of slavery through the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution would not have been passed without a vote, demonstrating a commitment to freedom and equality for all. This means to me that this proclamation was not forced upon the American people, but was a choice that expanded rights for all citizens regardless of color, strengthening both the Union and the military. The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was written in 1776 by one of America's best writers, Thomas Jefferson. Unlike other documents, the Declaration was not legalistic, but was immensely powerful. But it was the result of the Revolutionary War. America was being ruled by Britain. They could not govern themselves or make their own laws, and they had to pay taxes. The Declaration of Independence severed our political ties with Great Britain. It was the first statement of the American people declaring their freedom to choose their own government, giving America independence, self-reliance, and personal accountability, eventually strengthening the economy. It created principles on which our government and us as Americans are based on, and influenced many other countries to fight for freedom in their country. Patriotism at its core means a deep love and dedication to one's country, rooted in the values of liberty, justice, and equality for all. As we look back on these major documents, we will remember that true patriotism lies in supporting these principles and working together to create a nation where every individual is valued and respected. This is why I, Esperanza Maria Winley, believe that these U.S. documents most exemplify patriotism. Thank you.
Good afternoon, judges, parents, staff members, and fellow contestants. My name is Zaru Guzman Galindo, and I am very honored to speak to all of you guys today. Theodore Roosevelt stated, "This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in." I adore this quote because to me it is very motivating to get people of all ages to show patriotism by helping people benefit the world from disaster. Roosevelt said, "We can make the United States a better place for all of us. We can accomplish this by being kind to our citizens, voting, and how we use our freedom of speech." Another patriot, Charles Handy, once said, "Citizenship is a chance to make a difference in the place where you belong." This quote is the exact point I am trying to prove. One of the ways we can make the United States a better place for all of us is by being kind to our citizens. An idea on how to be a good citizen is by being informed of your surroundings. For example, if you're on your phone in a public area, imagine how many people you're disrupting for not paying attention to your environment. This also means you must respect others and their personal space. This leads us to my next idea. Volunteering to be active in our community, such as helping an elderly person cross the street or even helping with their groceries. These are all excellent ways on how to be a good citizen. Like Handy observed, the chance to make a difference in the place where you belong is the perfect way to be a good citizen. Freedom of speech was adopted in 1791 by the First Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, Article 11, which states, "The free communication of ideas and opinions is one of the most basic rights of man." Do you think the Founding Fathers wanted us to use this right maliciously? Mike Leach said, "Freedom of speech should be wide open as long as it doesn't incite violence." Each day, 12 students die from gun violence in America. Another 32 are shot or injured. The most common reasons for these casualties is due to all the hatred over social media or even bullying at schools. If you abuse your freedom of speech and use it for harm, innocent people suffer. I urge everyone to use caution with their freedom of speech. Remembering your freedom of speech should never interfere with another individual's freedom of happiness. Participating in the electoral process displays patriotism. The first election was held February 4th, 1789. The purpose of this election was so the new citizens of the United States finally had a choice of who ran their government. Michelle Obama once said, It's more important than ever that we show up to vote not just this year, but every year and every election. Every voice must be heard and every vote must be counted." I've heard many people complaining after the 2016 Trump and 2020 Biden election, and it's normally the people who did not vote getting outraged because the person they wanted to become president didn't get elected, yet chose not to vote. So if you have an opinion about who should win an election, please vote. Or if you're my age, please encourage someone you know to vote. We can all make the United States a better place for all of us by being kind to our citizens, voting, and how we use our freedom of speech. His warning, unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in, is our call to take action. I personally pledge to continue to do my best to create the country Roosevelt envisioned. I am Zayu Guzman Galindo. I ask you to please act on one thing you can do to make our country a better place for all of us. Thank you.
Is the U.S. Constitution a living document that adapts to the changing times, or does it mean the exact same thing it meant when it was first written? It's truly an interesting question. On February 21st, 1787, the Confederation Congress called for a convention with fellow state delegates from Virginia to meet in Philadelphia. This was when they wound up creating an entirely new framework of government called the U.S. Constitution. The Congress originally agreed upon 12 amendments in 1789. Today, over 11,000 amendments have been proposed, but we have only reached 27 in total. With that being said, the Constitution has changed a lot since the 18th century. It has solved problems we had in the past, amendments were necessary to add when times were changing, and there was an amendment that was made and eventually changed. Welcome parents, teachers, judges, and my fellow contestants. My name is Mia Simpson, and today I will be explaining how the U.S. Constitution has adapted to our changing country. Let's begin. First of all, if you are like me, you may worry about what kind of problems the creators of the Constitution have had to face. But the problems that the Confederation Congress have solved have shaped our country into how it is today. These problems include the states having more power than the federal government and the Congress not being able to raise money or collect taxes since they did not have enough power. Thankfully, the following problems have been solved. For example, to solve the first problem I've mentioned, which is the states having more power than the federal government, the Constitution divided the powers into two types of government. The state governments have responsibilities such as setting up courts, levying taxes, and spending and borrowing money. The federal governments have responsibilities such as to lay and collect taxes, declare war, and to raise and support the Army and Navy. As I have stated, the Constitution has changed by dealing with problems we had in the past. Secondly, amendments were necessary to add to the Constitution to keep up with the changing times. The most recent amendment added to the Constitution was to establish the abolishment of slavery from the United States and all places that fall under its jurisdiction. It was created on May 7, 1992. Amendments are only made when it is absolutely necessary to create change. Amendments create change such as ending slavery, granting women the right to vote, and providing for direct popular election of senators. These are important events that occurred when we needed them to take place. Therefore, when we need changes to occur, amendments can be made. Furthermore, there was an amendment that was made and eventually changed. On February 26, 1869, the 15th Amendment was passed. It states specifically, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. This implies that all races can vote, but not all genders. This caused Elizabeth Cady Stanton to campaign tirelessly for women's right to vote. Although she did not live to see her goal achieved, she ran the American women's suffrage for 50 years with Susan B. Anthony. On June 4th, 1919, the 19th Amendment was passed. It states, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of gender. Even though the amendment itself has never been edited, there was a follow-up amendment that caused our country to change. Overall, there was an amendment saying that men were the only genders allowed to vote, but later on had a new amendment saying women were also allowed to vote. So this proves that the Constitution adapted to times changing. To conclude, the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the United States that adapts to our changing country. I have proved this by stating that problems were solved because of the Constitution. There was a problem, amendments were added to keep up with the changing times, and there was an amendment that was made and eventually changed. The Founding Fathers, who were part of the Confederation Congress, were hoping that the Constitution was a flexible document to fit the changing circumstances of their country. To go back to my previous question, is the U.S. Constitution a living document that adapts to the changing times, or does it have the exact same purpose it had when it was first written? In my opinion, it is a flexible document that adapts to our country as it changes. Thank you for your time.
Think about a chocolate chip cookie and all its components. Flour, sugar, eggs, butter, chocolate chips. All these ingredients form into one delicious cookie, right? Hello judges, parents, and contestants. My name is Valerie Romo. The 10 amendments are like the ingredients forming into one strong document, the Bill of Rights. This U.S. document has come to define our nation. As I said, the Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. Adopted by Congress were 12 amendments at first, but by December 15, 1791, 3/4 of these states had approved only 10 of these amendments, now as we know as the Bill of Rights. This document most exemplifies patriotism through fundamental freedoms, showing our determination in all the amendments that fall under the Bill of Rights. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of the press, which is the right to report news without being controlled by the government, like newspapers and magazines. These are all what the Bill of Rights holds. Close your eyes and listen to the repeated word, freedom. Freedom is something we fought for, something we earned. I think freedom is what most exemplifies patriotism in the Bill of Rights and guarantees liberties and civil rights to the individual. Freedom allows each and every individual to realize his or her full potential. Think about the world today and the world 240 years ago. It shows how drastically the U.S. has changed in its government and how much we fought for our rights, which clearly shows our determination. Anti-federalists argue that the Bill of Rights is necessary since it will serve as an alarm for the people, enabling them to instantly know when his or her rights were threatened. It shows our determination to how badly we wanted this document to be passed on, which I think is patriotic since it shows devotion. Stated by one of the many anti-federalists, Patrick Henry, the Constitution is not a document for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government. This quote to me is so powerful and shows that people know and deserve their rights. Devotion is what all those anti-federalists showed.
With this comes the 10 Amendments, and all these 10 Amendments are so powerful in the world that we live in today. The 10 Amendments is what really makes the Bill of Rights so patriotic. And at the end of the day, the 10 Amendments are what the Bill of Rights is. Amendment 1, freedoms, petition, assembly. 2, the right to bear arms. 3, quartering of soldiers. 4, search and arrest. 5, rights in criminal cases. 6, rights to a fair trial. 7, rights in civil cases. 8, bail, fines, punishment. 9, rights retained by the people. And 10, states' rights. These 10 amendments are so patriotic by simply showing how important they are. They allow a country's fundamental laws to adapt to changing times. They show the defense of one's country. By understanding and really going into depth about these 10 amendments makes us realize how incredibly major they are, viewing the fact that without the 10 amendments, there is no Bill of Rights. And without the Bill of Rights, there wouldn't be protections of our fundamental rights, leaving us vulnerable to potential government overreach and violation to our liberties. Good thing we have the Bill of Rights to prevent the government from abusing these liberties. But like a cookie comes imperfections. Burnt, raw, you had too much eggs, little flour, and so on. Being with this fact that the Bill of Rights is imperfect because it protected slavery. Concession slavery was the price for the support on Southern delegates, or what the framers of the Constitution thought in order to have a strong central government. Some would say this makes the Bill of Rights not so patriotic. However, as time changed later on, the Constitution protected slavery and legalized racial subordination. Fundamental freedom, showing our determination, and all the amendments that fall under the Bill of Rights are what makes the Bill of Rights so patriotic. After the cookies are made and done, you have to add a glass of milk. After the Bill of Rights were ratified, the 17 constitutional amendments were ratified too. Sometimes when you open a fresh cookie, there's sometimes a nice gooey surprise in the middle. The Bill of Rights is one of America's best kept secrets waiting to be made. It is also among our nation's most admired documents. I know it's my favorite document. It might now be yours too. Thank you.
Imagine it's the summer of 1787. You're walking into a room that holds the future of your country. A room that you will spend days, weeks, even months in, riding by candlelight through the night, creating a document that will live on as the most treasured article in our great nation. How would you feel if it were changed? Would you change it? Welcome parents, teachers, judges, and fellow contestants. My name is Lauren Tegler, and I believe that change in the Constitution is one of the most controversial topics in our country. For even one slight change could ripple into a tidal wave that lifts or crushes us. And so we come to the question, is the U.S. Constitution a living document that adapts to the times, or does it mean today exactly what it meant when it was written? I believe the Constitution should be able to change. My reasons? Well, think about this. For one, the improvement in education after the 19th Amendment, the original creation of America that was, in itself, a change, and the 15th Amendment rights that have granted so many citizens freedom, such as the first ever Black Congressman, Hiram Revels. First, I want to talk about a study done in January of 2015 on the effect of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote, and how it affected education. For this study, researchers examined the rates of students who stayed in school, and they found that after this change, or amendment to the Constitution, student enrollment rates increased by 9%, and students were shown to be more likely to stay in school after this amendment. Although we don't have a clear answer why this happened, here's my guess. After women's suffrage in the 19th Amendment, children saw their parents doing something they never thought would be possible for them. Girls saw their mothers doing something they never thought would be possible, and that motivated them. They could look at their parents and think, I can make a difference. I can do something to help my country. And how did this happen? Change in the document that is our country's foundation. If it weren't for this change, women couldn't vote, girls would not be as motivated to stay in school, and that is all due to change in the Constitution. Next, I want to talk about the original creation of America. The whole point was change. Change the laws, change our freedoms, change the way we live our lives. Think about this quote from Thomas Jefferson. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. This is a quote from a founding father. Even almost 200 years ago, we still needed change. Even the founding fathers knew how different the world would be today from the way it was in 1776, and how would we need to adapt to those changes. Lastly, I want to talk about the 15th Amendment rights that have granted so many citizens freedom, such as the first ever Black Congressman, Hiram Revels. In 1776, The law stated that people of color had no freedoms, but thankfully, in today's day and age, things are different. For example, take Hiram Revels, the first ever black congressman. The interesting part of Revels' story is that only 22 days prior to his election, the 15th Amendment was ratified, giving him the right to run and be elected to Congress. If it weren't for this change, Revels could never have become a congressman or become president of the Alcorn Agricultural and Mechanical College in Mississippi. Hiram Revels is just one example of the incredible impact change can create. Think about how change has impacted your life and how it can improve us as a community and as a country. Ultimately, the Constitution is not a document that is set in stone. All current changes in the Constitution have only bettered our country, such as the improvement in education after the 19th Amendment, the original creation of America that was, in itself, a change, and the 15th Amendment rights that granted so many citizens freedom, such as the first ever black congressman, Hiram Revels. Think about America. America, the greatest country on earth. America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. America, the country of change. Thank you.
The Constitution of the United States of America, signed September 17th, 1787, is a powerful document demonstrating American patriotism in its grandeur and glory. The preamble states, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." What a powerful sentence and ideology, outlining the unity and aspirations for a newly formed country. However, no matter how vital the Constitution was and is in establishing laws that govern and regulate America, the document that symbolizes the heart and soul of patriotism and instills in Americans honor, pride, and loyalty is the Declaration of Independence. Come with me on a journey through time, where you will be able to experience the events leading up to the American Revolution, the founding of this great nation, and the writing of the singular most important document establishing our freedoms and what these freedoms mean to us as Americans. According to the National Archives, the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, 1776, the day America declared its freedom from England, but was not signed until August 2nd of that year. The journey of liberation began prior to the start of the American Revolution on April 19th, 1775. Many people fled England and the oppressive reign of King George III, hence the establishment of the American colonies. Unfortunately, King George thirsted for power and managed to exercise authority over those who dwelt in the new land. Although the colonists were upset about acts, what we call taxes, such as the Stamp Act and the Tea Act, the bigger concern was that they had no representation in Parliament. As a result, the colonists united together against Great Britain and formed what we call the colonial militia. I had the opportunity to visit Boston and gained an even greater respect for my forefathers and all they did. I learned that the Boston Tea Party was the catalyst to the American Revolution that would start just 16 months later. On December 16th, 1773, an organization known as the Sons and Daughters of Liberty threw 340 chests of tea into the Boston harbor disguised as Indians. As tensions grew, the colonists desired to govern themselves freely. Eventually, the war started, and the Declaration of Independence was drafted by Thomas Jefferson, with contributions from John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston. One powerful message found within this document is, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." According to the Cambridge English Dictionary, a keystone is the most important part of a plan or idea on which everything else depends. In architecture, the keystone of an arch is the curved portion at the top. Without it, the whole arch would crumble. The Declaration of Independence is the keystone to our freedoms. The colonists, or the first people to arrive in America, were granted many freedoms that were further outlined in the Constitution. One such freedom is the freedom of religion. In our country, we have the opportunity to decide for ourselves who, when, where, and if we worship. Another right is the right to bear arms, allowing all citizens the opportunity to protect themselves should the need arise. When I visited the National Archives Rotunda, I was in awe. There I stood, the Declaration of Independence before me, fragile and delicate in appearance, yet filled with words strong enough to withstand the test of time and still ring true today. I hope that in your personal pursuit of happiness, that you, like me, will come to know the influential power of the Declaration of Independence, and that its truths increase your pride in being an American. Thank you.
Morning, judges, visitors, and fellow contestants. My name is Lucas Poole from Copperwood Elementary, and today I have a quote that really caught my attention. Writer Theodore Roosevelt once said, "This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in, unless it is a good place for all of us to live in." He was the 26th president, serving from 1901 to 1909. He was considered a progressive president, so we wanted to look towards the future rather than dwell on the past. He wanted the country to improve in areas such as conservation, the environment, and equal opportunity. Today I'd like to focus on this concept of opportunity in America. You probably already know a lot about how America was first discovered and its first colonies, but after I read the quote from Theodore Roosevelt, I started thinking about how this entire country was built for opportunity. At first, it started simple. Opportunity for land, gold, and the like. America itself was even discovered and eventually founded by people searching for an opportunity for a new trade route. But later, traveling to America had a much larger, much more meaningful opportunity. Freedom. As you know, the concepts of freedom and democracy are an integral part of America as a whole, but I believe they could also be considered a part of America's opportunity design. Freedom and democracy cause opportunities, whether to simply speak your mind or vote for a new president. They cause opportunities for immigrants to find new homes in the USA. They cause opportunities for you to live your own way of life and follow religion of your choice. The way the very foundation of this country's government was constructed was to not only enable new opportunities, but also to encourage them. Speaking of the government, as I said, America's government is structured to have more opportunities for change. One of the biggest problems with the early U.S. Constitution was that it didn't do enough to protect the rights of its citizens. James Madison, acknowledging these concerns, listed various rights to be protected for citizens, a Bill of Rights, if you will. Soon enough, these were official. In fact, the U.S. Constitution was made to be flexible and change over time by its design, with a total of 27 amendments throughout the country's history. Many of these amendments have given citizens more opportunities, such as the 13th Amendment, which gave freedom to slaves, and the 19th Amendment, which gave women the opportunity to vote. The changes to the Constitution are important because they are what help to keep this country fair and just for all who live here, despite the many changes in technology and lifestyle. No truer words were ever spoken than when Ralph Waldo Emerson said that America is another name for opportunity. In the end, all these various points summarize one idea that Theodore Roosevelt brought to light. From its history to its design, down to its government, America was built around creating opportunity. And opportunity is what allows this country and its people to thrive and be a great place for all of us to live in. Thank you for your time and attention.
What is the first thing you think of when you hear the name Theodore Roosevelt? A teddy bear, the Nobel Peace Prize, or our 26th President of the United States? Well, when I hear his name, my mind immediately goes to one of his most well-known historical quotes. This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. Thank you parents, judges, and special guests for being here today. My name is Amelia Bartonelli. Now, You are all probably wondering, what was Roosevelt trying to vocalize in that quote? What responsibilities do we as citizens have to our country? As a fellow citizen myself, I believe Theodore Roosevelt and I share the same concepts about wanting to change our country for the better, such as having more affordable health care, reducing gun violence, and finally, extending the age limit on teen driving. To start off, one of the main problems in our healthcare system is affordability. 1 in 4 adults say that they or a family member in their household have had problems paying for care. The cost of care can also lead some adults to skip or delay seeking services. In 2022, about half of U.S. adults reported delaying or going without either medical care, prescription drugs, mental health care, or dental care due to costs. But what if we make healthcare free? If we decide to do this, administrative expenses in healthcare sectors would decline, freeing up other resources for other sectors and ultimately increasing economic productivity. Another benefit to universal healthcare is that it would lower costs and prevent medical bankruptcy. A June 2022 study found that the United States could have saved $105.6 billion in COVID-19 hospitalization costs with single-payer universal healthcare during the pandemic. Next, another enormous problem we face today is gun violence. Over the past several years, there have been many mass shootings in America which have struck the feelings of many American citizens. This includes mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, extended family, and strangers have all been affected by this problem. Gun violence is an intense and controversial issue that many people have different views and opinions about. But what is the best solution to preventing gun violence? I believe putting a waiting period law on guns before you can pick them up will have the most positive solution without interfering with our rights. A waiting period law can create a buffer between the time of gun purchase and gun acquisition, which can help prevent infamous acts of gun violence. Another reason is that a waiting period law can give law enforcement additional time to have a more accurate and detailed background check, which will allow it to create a cooling off period to help prevent acts of suicide or violent attempts. Finally, the last significant reason is extending the age limit on teen driving. As a teenager myself, I can't help but visualize piling all my friends into one car and driving them to the gas station to get snacks, or driving them to the mall so we can go shopping. But at the age 16, is our character and maturity fully grown to be able to make important decisions on the road? Therefore, I believe we should make it to where we should be able to start driving at the age of 18. According to the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, the fatal crash rate per mile driven is nearly 3 times higher for teens aged 16 to 17 than it is for drivers 18 and above. Teen drivers have a higher fatal crash rate mainly because of their immaturity, lack of skill, and lack of experience. We speed, we make mistakes, and we get distracted easily, especially if our friends are in the car. This also gives us more time to practice, take more driving lessons, and learn the roads around us. So therefore, extending the age limit on getting a driver's license will truly have a more positive and safer change in our country. In conclusion, I believe that Teddy and I share the same concepts about wanting to change our country for the better. Even 100 years later, there are many problems that need to be addressed, such as having more affordable health care, reducing gun violence, and finally, extending the age limit on teen driving. I truly believe if we focus on these 3 concepts, that will not only make America a better place for me to live in, but for everyone to live in.
Teddy bears. A candy shop owner in Brooklyn made a stuffed bear and named it a Teddy's bear, dedicated to Theodore Roosevelt's 1902 hunting trip when he refused to shoot an injured black bear because he believed it was unsportsmanlike. Though random, this incident links this concept of sportsmanship with good citizenship. Good afternoon, judges, parents, and fellow contestants. My name is Jerisha Shaji, and I'm an 8th grade student from Marshall Ranch. Theodore Roosevelt once said, "This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in." Today I'll be discussing how Theodore Roosevelt helped to better our country, how he influenced the ideals of good citizenship, and what responsibilities we have to our fellow citizens. Theodore Roosevelt was the 26th president of the US and displayed true good citizenship with his presidency. Around the time of his term, the states became increasingly industrial, but so did the growth of the political dominance of big business. And as to prevent this, Roosevelt wrote many acts, like the Sherman Antitrust Act and the Square Deal, which allowed for the division of these big corporations that tried to take advantage of our economy. Along with this, Roosevelt administered more power for the people and broadened the use of his own executive power in the government. When expanding our federal government, Roosevelt quoted, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." His big stick ideology not only emphasized on the political corruption of our nation, but also showed just how important the ability to negotiate peace while still having strong military power in our country was. The actions he took in global affairs for this country were on this firm belief, but in return, it helped revolutionize our country into the world power it still is today. But aside from his involvement in politics, Roosevelt was also very involved with the conservation movement. He used his power and authority to designate national forests and preserved over 194 million acres of land, which continue to benefit our communities today. Aside from this, Roosevelt worked in careers such as New York City Police Board President, Navy Secretary Assistant, and Lieutenant Colonel during the Spanish-American War. All these things go to show that Roosevelt took initiative in the things he wanted to produce change from, especially in the case it was for the public good. This is because he stated, "It is men's duty to be the change they wanted to see. After all, they must live under the rules they make." Referencing his new nationalism speech, Roosevelt said, "Each one of you carries the burden of not only doing well for the sake of your nation, but seeing that this nation does well for the sake of mankind." Roosevelt's beliefs in good citizenship were present in the actions he took that came from the person he was. Because Roosevelt was not just a president, he was a conservationist, a soldier, even a sports fanatic. He loved American football so much, he assisted in rewriting the rules for it, and if that isn't the American dream, I don't know what is. But like Roosevelt, we may also have many roles. We are so many things, but at the end of the day, we're people. Patriotism, the love for one's country, must start with the love for the people in it. Our responsibilities are not just made up of our civic values, but our beliefs and ideals. For example, Roosevelt greatly believed in sportsmanship. He valued the generous, fair, and respected aspect of it. He believed man must be able to keep up with such an attitude while still working hard and achieving great things while doing so. He said, "A man is no good citizen unless he has the ability which will make him work hard. A good citizen is not a good citizen unless he is an efficient citizen." Roosevelt proved that we can make change through the actions we take and values we believe in. Our responsibility to our fellow citizens is to produce that good change while still being good people. Theodore Roosevelt is a great inspiration for all patriotic individuals, and his works throughout his entire career prove it was his ideals that set up the measures he took to better our country. But most importantly, Roosevelt was a good person with good values and a good heart, and we as good people must also value the goodness of our hearts and spread that to our families and communities. Because it is only then that we can make this country a good place for all of us to live in. So no, we can't all have a stuffed bear named after us or alter the rules to our favorite sports. But we can be responsible of the goodness we reciprocate to our fellow peers. So, to my dear audience, I ask all of you here today, what responsibility do we have as the good, patriotic people of this nation in having sportsmanship in all we do and producing positive, efficient change to help make the world a better place? Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.